As the 60s began, the school continued to evolve. The atmosphere of the nation had changed as the events of the Vietnam War had been brought to the attention of the country. The news had an impact on students, similar to World War II back in the 1940s. Throughout the 60s, all of the original East High staff members had retired from their positions, leaving them open for the next generation to step in. By 1961, the East hockey team had won the state championship. That same year, the baseball and curling teams had won city championships as well. East High athletics were becoming more popular and became more professional in the 50s and 60s. Another tragic event that affected the US was the death of John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States. A member of the East community made a memorial in the Tower Times dedicated to JFK. A huge addition to the school was announced by 1962. It would include 20 new classrooms and a pool along 4th Street, to name a few changes. The new addition to the school had opened up to students and staff in 1963. East now had its first swimming coach named Mr. DeWing, who would teach the first swimming classes at the school. Within the same year, Mr. Vandermolen was replaced by Mr. Gull as vice principal. Mr. Vandermolen would later become the principal of the new La Follette High School. In 1965, the last teacher that taught at the school since East High first opened had retired. By the time she had left, East had officially begun the next generation. In 1966, East's basketball team would have one of its most successful games in history, and entered the state tournament with their heads held high, and they lost their first game. It was certainly one of the best streaks that the East High basketball team had ever had to date, aside from their state tournament loss. Opening into 1967, the war in Vietnam was becoming more prevalent by the day. Teachers and graduates had joined the military. Unfortunately, the war's end was far in the future. A graduate from East wrote a letter to East from Vietnam praising the patriotism of East High students. By the end of the 60s, Mr. Barrett had given up his position as principal of East High. The new principal of the school became Mr. Lokensgaard in 1969. He made a multitude of changes at East, one of which allowed girls to wear slacks inside of the school building. I know, absolutely revolutionary. Now, East is typically known for being the oldest school in the district, but at this time, it was actually not the oldest. At the time, Madison Central High School was the oldest school. It was originally founded in 1884. However, by 1969, the school shut down, and about a decade and a half later, was torn down to make room for an MATC parking lot. By the end of the decade, many students and faculty members of the East community joined the protests related to the Vietnam War. Millions of people nationwide took into account the effect the war was having on both American and Vietnamese citizens. It was obvious that many events had yet to unfold that would affect the students at East and the nation as a whole.